Hello everybody and welcome back to Gript. Today we're going to talk about Brazil and what exactly is happening there politically. We've all seen the rise of Bolsonaro, we've seen the Amazon fires, and we're going to try and get a hold on what exactly is going on the ground. And to help us do so, we're joined by Brazilian journalist Bruno Pontes, who's living in Dublin. So Bruno, can you tell us, who is Jair Bolsonaro? Because we hear so much in the media and he's often portrayed as a boogeyman of sorts. Is he as corrupt as he's portrayed?
No, he's not corrupt at all, actually, according to our Supreme Court. Bolsonaro was a member of he is a member still of the Brazilian army. He's a paratrooper, ex-paratrooper, who entered politics in the late 80s or early 90s in Rio de Janeiro. He became a member of it would be equivalent here to the city council in Rio. And then he gradually rose up to the parliament as a federal deputy, as we call in Brazil, as a representative of the Rio de Janeiro state. And since his days in parliament, he's been very, as the media likes to say, controversial, because he tends to side with the majority of the people's opinions on several issues. And I would say he's a kind of, he likes to portray himself as a Brazilian Trump. And I think that's a fair definition.
So he shoots from the hip and he's not afraid to speak his mind, but does he go too far sometimes?
Maybe he goes too far sometimes, but I mean, everybody does. Maybe he's a bit careless as a politician sometimes when he speaks about some things, but he's just a guy who doesn't use doublespeak, newspeak. He doesn't sugarcoat his opinions. If you like them, that's it. If you don't like it, well, too bad.
And he obviously has a lot of support. He won the election by a clear majority. So
a clear majority, yeah. And if you read the foreign press, you get the impression that he's getting less and less popular with time, which is an absurd. I mean, the guy, he can't go out without being harassed by the mob who wants to hold him, take selfies with him, etc. A little bit like Matteo Salvini, if you look at Matteo Salvini in Italy going out and about the country.
And Bruno, you wrote an interesting article about the stabbing incident. Someone tried to essentially assassinate Bolsonaro during his campaign. Have they gotten to the bottom of who the culprit was and why he did it?
Yeah, he was stabbed, as everybody knows. I don't think everybody's aware that he nearly died that night. He lost nearly 2 liters of blood. He nearly died there that night. And to this day, we don't know, the authorities investigating the case don't know who are paying the attacker's lawyers. It's a very mysterious affair because this guy was unemployed, Adélio Bispo, the guy who stabbed Bolsonaro in the belly. He was unemployed at the time. But when the police raided his accommodations in a kind of hotel in Brazil where he was staying then, they found 4 mobile phones, 2 laptops, and other electronic devices, which for an unemployed person is a bit weird to possess. And the very night he stabbed Bolsonaro, 4 lawyers of a very rich and famous advocacy firm in Brazil got there to the place, Juiz de Fora, Brazil, and by jet, private jet.
And they arrived to defend him?
To defend him. And Adélio himself didn't know what's going on. He even asked one of the guys, who are you, who's paying you? And this lawyer said, your mother contacted me to defend you. To which Adélio laughed because he said, my mother died 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And so is Brazil the corrupt, I won't say cesspit, but is it the...
Yeah, you can say cesspit, no, I don't mind.
Is it constantly suffering from corrupt governance the way that so many people suspect it is, and the way the Brazilians themselves talk about it?
It is. You have to see that Brazil is a huge place with a huge state machine.
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger it is, we have too many state companies taking care of too many things in a very big place. So you can imagine what kind of negotiations and bribes go behind all those state
And
bureaucracy.
Has Bolsonaro managed to avoid controversy in that regard, or is he someone who many suspect to have taken backhanders and bribes as well?
No, he has a very he's very proud of his reputation, because when we had one of the biggest corruption scandals in Brazil, called Mensalão, which would be kind of it's a slang for monthly payment, mm-hmm. which one of our previous presidents, Lula, mm-hmm. Saint Lula, was paying members of the parliament to have his laws passed, etc. And
that's proven that Lula was paying members of parliament?
It's just proven. That there's no controversy about it. The case was judged by the Supreme Court and all. Mm-hmm. It's proven.
And he's in jail now? Is he in jail for that reason?
He's in jail for... one case involved to the other and related to other, and then he's in jail now. He's serving a 12-year term. There are talks about him maybe being released later this year or next year maybe.
And Lula is a massive figure on the Brazilian scene. Obviously, he has considerable support. Could he stand against Bolsonaro in the next elections if he gets out of prison?
According to under our law, he couldn't, because he would be a former
convict.
A convict, yeah. So he tried to. He didn't try to last year, because the whole thing was just a pantomime. I mean, he was already in risk of being jailed during the presidential campaign last year, and he kept telling the public, I'm running to beat Bolsonaro, I'm running. But it was clear for anyone with a sane mind that he wouldn't run, because he was about to be convicted and jailed. But he kept saying that, he kept selling this image of the guy who's gonna run to save the country from this monster from the far right, as they like to say. But in the end he didn't, and he supported a guy who's, well, an expressive guy who...
And so just how far left is Lula, because he was in power for years and years in Brazil? Is he essentially a communist or a socialist, or is he just centre-left?
No, he's a socialist. I mean, in 1990, he himself and Fidel Castro launched an organization called Foro de São Paulo, which is São Paulo Forum. It was a huge organization founded in São Paulo City in Brazil in 1990, with the majority of the left-wing parties in the South America, in Central America as well, like the Communist Party in Cuba, the Workers' Party, the Partido dos Trabalhadores of Brazil, which Lula leads to this day from prison still. And they formed this huge organization, which would be kind of it's not exactly a think tank.
Along with Chavez in Venezuela?
Hugo Chavez from Venezuela, some far left figure, people from Chile, Nicaragua, Argentina, etc. Colombia, they had the FARC.
And so it was like a grand coalition of hard left forces?
Hard left forces trying to find a way, as they used to say in the beginning. They founded the São Paulo Forum in 1990 to recover in South America what they had lost in the USSR. Mm-hmm.
But they haven't quite been successful in that, because it's not like the USSR in the sense that there's no central command, and there isn't, in most countries, a communist leadership.
Yes, but when you think of it,
there is private property in every country.
But when you think of it, in 1990, South America was most of the countries, at least, were governed by kind of center or center-right presidents. By the time in 10 years' time, most of South America was governed by left-wing presidents, including Lula. They had Lula in Brazil, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Cristina Kirchner, and others in Argentina, for example. So it was quite successful in a way. Mm-hmm. And they suffered several punches in the past few years with Bolsonaro, Argentina.
Yeah. And so why did Brazil swing back to the right? I don't know how far right Bolsonaro is, but why did that swing occur?
I would say Brazilian people are tired and frustrated with nearly 15 years of left-wing government, because you have to understand that the left-wing trend in Brazil didn't start with Lula. We had already 2 terms of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, which is a social democrat. He was called he is nicknamed the Prince of Social Democracy in Brazil. He's not as left-wing as Lula, of course, but he still is a social democrat, and he took several actions and measures to put Brazil in a kind of social democrat way. So we had 2 terms of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, 2 terms of Lula. We had Dilma Rousseff after him, and during this period, crime rate skyrocketed, unemployment rose, and people just got fed up, I would say.
And so it's the lack of security and lack of steady employment and lack of economic growth that have led to the election of Jair Bolsonaro, principally.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So in terms of the global outlook on Bolsonaro, most of the mainstream media will be highly critical of numerous outbursts that Bolsonaro has presented to the world and also engaged in before he was elected president of Brazil. But is he steady in the sense that he's totally irrational and can be trusted with the levers of power? Because that accusation will be thrown at people like him and Trump that ultimately they're too erratic. Is that the case?
Not mentally fit.
That's one of the accusations.
I mean, I'd say as soon as you deviate from the left-wing playbook, you deem mentally fit. So
yeah, the ad hominem attack starts then.
If you're not a left-wing guy who speaks those lovely left-wing jargons and etc. Talking points, you instantly become a mentally fit individual. So, well, I'll tell you that to the people who think that Bolsonaro is not mentally fit or is a kind of dumb, idiotic person. The guy managed to win a presidential election using his cell phone and social media. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a proper party. He didn't have television time for his campaign. He had literally 18 seconds on TV. That was all. And
in Brazil, is it splitting along similar lines that you'll see in Europe and the States, in that there's a very secular, clear, hard left emergent, and then on the other side there's a nationalist and often Christian right wing?
Yeah, I would say so. You can see those 2 blocks forming around the world with let's call it this way, the left wing bloc, or how should I say, progressive bloc of people who advocate for global government, the raise of the national identities and national sovereignties, etc. And on the other hand, we have this bloc with the United States, of course, and Italy with Matteo Salvini, and the United Kingdom now, I would say, and Brazil, of course. People reacting to these trends and realizing that this worldview of no borders, no nations, we are one and we should be governed as one, doesn't really work. So it hasn't worked for our peoples. So we should take control back and decide what's best for us.
The most recent trouble Bolsonaro got himself in was around the Amazon and the efforts he was taking in order to put out the fires, and it was reported here as if most of the Amazon was in serious danger. So what was actually going on the ground? I know that the fires were a lot more isolated than the depiction you offered by the mainstream media here.
Yeah, you have to understand that the Amazon forest is a huge place. It's bigger than the Western Europe, for example. It's enormous. And those fires happen, unfortunately, every year. This is the fire season in Brazil. The air is dry, there's a lot of wind, and there's a lot of people burning land to plant, to construct stuff, etc. And it's not only illegal activity in Amazon. Just local populations that burn the soil to grow stuff, etc. So the international media and international actors, governments, etc., NGOs, blah blah blah, they grab the opportunity. I mean, I can comprehend their behavior in this case, because they hate the man. So if they see fire in the forest, and we all know that the forests are the lungs of the planet, please, I can't stand that thing anymore. By the way,
because it's not true. The Amazon.
It's not true. I mean,
planet.
for all of us here, for all the Gript people who listen to this, the oceans are the lungs of the planet, not the Amazon forest. So yeah, they grabbed the opportunity, and there's a lot of interest in the Amazon that has nothing to do with the well-being of the local people.
It's about resources.
Resources. The land in the Amazon is very, very, very rich. There's gold there, diamonds, uranium, niobium, kind of stuff like this. They are very, very, very prized. They are very useful for high technology endeavors, etc. And water, of course. So it's not just a matter of protecting the people living there. There's a lot more behind it. There's a multitude of NGOs operating in the Amazon. They are not exactly NGOs because they are receiving funds from governments, international organizations, the UN even.
And so essentially these controversies were jumped on and amplified by the world's media, as you see it, and many of the world's governments, in order to try and hammer Bolsonaro and try and take advantage of that crisis.
They were awfully amplified. I give you an example. Emmanuel Macron, he put up a Twitter about Amazon, in which he called Amazon our house. And for this he used a picture of the Amazon burning, a very dramatic picture, and saying, oh, we have to do something, G7, let's take action right now, it's an international crisis. The picture that Macron used was a picture from 1989. It was on Nature magazine, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. A picture from 1989. Mm-hmm. And he used that picture to blame Bolsonaro for the fire, for that very dramatic fire in the picture.
So the French and others have something to gain.
Yeah, sorry, this is not to say that there haven't been fires happening in the Amazon. There are. And it's unfortunate, but it happens every year. And the Brazilian government is taking action to decrease this kind of events.
So what in the next few years is going to happen in Brazil in your view? There'll be elections soon, I assume?
There will be elections in 2 years' time. There are talks that Bolsonaro is trying discreetly to form his own party, because he now is in a party that it's not very disciplined. There are a lot of people in his own party, PSL, a tiny party, that doesn't follow his line during votes in the Congress, etc. So there are talks that has been trying to form a very disciplined, not a big one, but a very disciplined party, so he can run more safely in the next election. And from the left field of Brazilian politics, we still don't see any possibly successful runner, because Lula is in jail still. I don't know what the situation will be in 2 years' time. His candidate in the last election, Fernando Haddad, is basically finished because he was mayor of São Paulo, and he couldn't get himself re-elected there. So there's no much hope for him, I suppose. From the left side of the politics, the things are a bit undefined.
So Bolsonaro might be safe if economically things are stable?
Oh yeah. So he's trying hard to get his pension reform passed in the Congress. It's in the Senate right now. It's stuck there for a while, but he's trying to get it passed there. He's trying to modernize labor regulations, and he's trying to.
He's also trying to legalize guns, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he has done that through what we call, I think we'd call here executive orders. He's trying to legalize guns, but these orders depend on the vote of the Congress. Some of his measures in this field increase in access for people to have to possess guns.
But is there popular support for that measure? Is that one in which people feel as if they'll be able to defend themselves from criminals, or what's the rationale?
There is enough support. I tell in 2003 or 5, I might be mistaken. There was a referendum in Brazil about Brazilians being allowed to possess guns and ammunition, etc. So the government asked the people, so Brazilians, you think you should have the right to possess guns, etc. And we said yes. What did the government do afterwards? He said, I don't care.
Yeah, they didn't legislate for it.
Yeah, I don't care what the people want. What the people want. So they basically confiscated everybody's guns. Confiscated is a strong word, but they made it harder and harder for you to possess a gun. Yeah. So the situation has been up to a few years ago or a few months ago like this. There is only 2 groups of people in Brazil that can possess guns. One is the police. They can own outdated guns, not very efficient ones. And the other group is the thugs. Mm-hmm. They can have all the best guns in the world.
Yeah. Well, Bruno, it's fascinating, and we hope to have you back in as things develop, because Brazil is obviously very important for the rest of the world, not just in terms of its resources, but it's massively populated as well and has an influence there on a global level. So we look forward to having you in again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Tim. It was a pleasure.